Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to use selections to separate elements from your image. So first, open an image in Adobe Photoshop. You can right click and choose Adobe Photoshop from the menu. So here it is. I've got an image I've took a while back and I want to use only small part of this image. So if I would like to try to use eraser, and I would just try to erase things in that image, you will see that I still just going to erase the image, but it's going to erase it to the color that it's chosen as a color of the background. And the color of the background, you can see it here. If that color was different, what you're going to see, my eraser just basically brings the color to that background color. So this is not exactly what I want. So first thing I will need to do, I will need to go to layers in the image to make sure that that image is not locked. When you open a JPEG in Photoshop, it's going to be automatically locked and it's going to be called background. Double click on it. You can leave the name as it is or you can change it if you want and press OK. So now this image, it's available for me to modify in many different ways. And what you're going to see now, with eraser, if I will start erasing, it's actually going to erase to empty. If you see a little check square, that's an indication there is nothing there, so there's no image in that area. So that's exactly what I want. So one way of getting rid of parts of the image, it's using an eraser. This is a very time-consuming way of doing it, and there are other ways you can do it. And you can do it through the selections. So there are different ways of using selections. First of all, I can select and delete part of the image. So if I will select a marquee, you can see I can select a rectangle of an image, and then on my keyboard I will press delete, and that will get rid of that area. The only thing that I need to remember, if I want to edit other parts of the image, I will need to get rid of that selection, which I will do from the top menu, select, deselect, or you can press Command D on your keyboard. So that's one of the ways of getting rid of parts of the image. The other tool that you can use is a lasso, and there are a few different lassos that you've got available. I'm going to zoom into the image so it's easier for you to see. So first of all, just a lasso will allow me to click and draw around something. And then I will need to close that selection actually. And here it is. I can freehand select something that I want to delete. So that's one part. Select, deselect, or press Command D to continue. I can use a polygonal lasso. That will allow me, similar to our pen tool in Illustrator, to click around and create selections with straight lines, which is good if your elements got straight lines, so that's pretty useful there. And you also have a magnetic lasso. So magnetic lasso, and I'm going to zoom in again, it's going to help you and it's going to adjust between a difference in contrast in colors between the elements of your image. So it's a bit like a freehand lasso, but the program helps you to select the area. I'll just go around, click, and press delete. So those are a few different ways I can use selection. You also have got some more advanced tools. You can use a quick selection tool. I'm going to make a brush a bit bigger here. That will select similar areas around. So you can see I'm just drawing my selection out here. Press delete. I've actually selected a bit too much. So I'm going to try to do it again. So that's a cool way of doing it. You can see if the colors are very similar, you might end up with the selection that it's actually cutting into what you want to select. And the last selection tool I'm going to show you, it's a magic wand tool. So that's a very good tool if you've got a contrast between your background and the object that you want to cut out. With that, I can just select a part of the image that I don't want and I can add it. So if I move to have more than just one click, and you can see I can select more of it. You've got higher control with the magic wands through the tolerance. You can change the amount of tolerance you're accepting for the pixels that you're selecting by changing the number on the top of the menu. So my number at the moment is pretty low, it's 10, so it's selecting just a small amount of the image. But if I will change that number to something higher, like 32, and I will click in the same area, you can see that the selection is bigger. If I will choose a really big number like 50, you can see that the selections are getting bigger and bigger. So the number for tolerance, it's going to depend on your image, and it's going to change from one image to another. Okay, let's have a look on different types of images that you would like to separate your object from the background. So here I've got a simple vase. The background of this vase is very plain, so the best way of getting rid of it would be through actually using a magic wand. First, I'm going to change the image from the background by double clicking on it and pressing OK. And because the background is so unified in the color, I can choose a low number like 10. And you can see it's very nicely selected what I needed. And I can easily get rid of my background. So here there is a pointer for you. When you take photographs for this project, try to photograph your objects on a very plain and contrasting background. It's going to make your work much quicker and easier. I want to show you what would happen if my tolerance was too big. So I'm going to change it to something bigger. And you can see now when I've clicked on my backgrounds, part of my vase has been selected. So that's not what I want. So I'm going to deselect it and make sure that the number is low. I'm going to get rid of this area here as well. And before I do anything else, I'm going to deselect it. So you can see now that my vase is separate from my background. Let's have a look on the different type of the image. I'm going to open the lemons here. And let's say that in this image, I would like to just use lemons. I don't want any of the background. So first, in layers, I need to change my image to a layer. And as I'm not using any of the area around my lemons, I can go and select a marquee. So now I've got my lemons selected, but I want them to be here. So I don't want that, I want the opposite of it. So I can select everything else, I can inverse my selection. And I will do it from the top menu, select, inverse, or Command-Shift-I. And now if I press delete, all of that amount of background is going to disappear. So I'm going to deselect this area and I'm going to zoom into my image. So I think there's enough contrast between my yellow and my white, so I'll try to use my magic wand. And I can just select the parts like that and delete them separately. But you can see what's happening is every time I'm clicking again, my selection changes. So I want to actually my selection to add to each other. So I'm going to change into the 2 rectangles in the menu. And now you can see every time I'm clicking, my selection stays and it adds to the previous selection. Okay, so I can build it like that if I want. Okay, in that area, you can actually try to use a quick selection tool and see if it's going to work. So it's working pretty decently here. Deselect again. And I also think that magic lasso would be a bit helpful here. Okay. But if you look on my image, if I zoom in much closer, I'm not happy with the edge of my object, so I will actually need to go and manually tidy it up. And also, I still got some areas that haven't been selected. So on that stage, eraser probably would be a good option. Brackets on your keyboard will make your brush of eraser bigger and smaller. And you want to make sure that you have a full opacity on your eraser. So first, I'm going to get rid of all of those extra excess areas here. Hopefully you can see how much easier it is now for me to erase things. Now I've got rid of most of my background. Okay, so that looks better, but I can't be very precise like that. So I'm going to make my brush of my eraser much smaller, and I'm going to zoom in much closer to my image. And I still want my brush to be pretty small. So you can see now I can go around my image, almost like blending highlights when you're putting the makeup on, and slowly by slowly I can tidy up that edge. Now, if I want to have a very refined effect, I can change the hardness of my brush. That will change my brush edge to a soft brush. So just to show you, that's a soft brush, so you can see the edge, it's not very clear. That's a hard brush. You can see that the edge is much more refined. Okay, so with my eraser, I can go around and tidy up all of those little imperfections around my object. And obviously, that part will take quite a lot of time. So this is a hint for you. Definitely think when you're photographing your objects, what's around it and what you're going to use from that object, and make sure that it's on the contrasting background, because as you've seen with my vase, that was 2 clicks to make a perfect image. And you can see the edge, it's very nice and refined. If your background is complicated, it's busy, you will need to spend much more time when you're cutting out your images. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I would like you to pick up 2 different images that you own and try to select different parts of them, cut out elements from those images. Thank you, and see you in the next video.